Hi everyone, and welcome to Network Balance number 6. I hope you're all well and coping in the ever increasing craziness that is out there in the world. It's been a hell of a start to June, I can say, astrologically and energetically. If you've been feeling a bit feral, don't worry, it's normal. That's the new normal, as they say. The new normal equals feral, basically. No, let's not go there. Actually, we are here to maintain our ISO Zen. ISO Zen is the feeling of Zen that we did discover during isolation, and ISO Zen is something that we want to continue and we want to maintain as we transition back into the real world. So that's really the theme of the balance. As usual, we kind of are continuing on with that. There were requests for wanting to really increase or enhance our discipline, our assertiveness, our maintaining of peace or feeling settled when there's uncertainty or there's no peace outside. And also what tested for us was actually starting or trusting that being vulnerable, asking for help, or even feeling a bit feral is kind of okay. It's really normal. It doesn't make, I think it's sort of, if anybody's read Catch-22, which is a great novel, by the way, we can tend to, we're in quite an insane world. And so when we're feeling anxious, it's easy to kind of go back to those ways that we've judged ourselves as there's something wrong with us because we're anxious or we're unsettled. But we're living in a fairly unsettled, chaotic world. So anxiety would be rather a normal reaction to that. So actually, I invite you to make this transition to see your sensitivity, to see your feeling of unsettledness as a good sign, as a healthy sign. When, something's toxic, we should react to that. That's healthy. So let's really embrace this version of our healthiness, which is saying that, yeah, we do feel disturbed by certain things that we're seeing and experiencing, and that makes us normal, or the new normal, shall we say. So yeah, just wanted to kind of address that straight off, because I feel like I've lived a lot of my life thinking I'm really weird and there's something wrong with me. And as the kind of veil's been lifted and I look at this world, I think, you know what, you're actually you're actually doing okay. So anyway, our goal for this balance is I tell myself to do what is right for me. So I tell myself, this was quite confronting when this tested for me. I tell myself what to do, basically, but you'll see as this balance unfolds where we need to step into a little bit more assertiveness and a little bit more hardcore. The bumper sticker for this one, really, or the overall theme is, it's time to use your noggin, folks. It's really time to embrace our rational intellect, our strategic and smart selves, and you can do that while being a hippie, wonderful, loving, free-spirited, feminine person in the world. We can actually be smart and shrewd and strategic. So that's kind of the theme today. Is interesting, huh? So our emotions were need for responsibility, and that is our inner selves, our child, our body, asking, could you please just take responsibility for me? Stop being wishy-washy, or stop languishing in emotional states that we let go for too long, and really just take responsibility for our needs and for the cultivating the peace that we want. the emotion of unfulfilled, others to self, and the others here were institutions. So the government, our workplaces or companies, schools, medical establishments, all of those things that we feel are unfulfilling or have not fulfilled us. So that is that emotion, and then also loyal to them. So despite the fact that they're not really meeting our needs or we're not feeling fulfilled in our interactions with them, we're still feeling a pressure to be loyal to them and actually kind of listen to them. And I'm not saying don't listen to them, but it's sort of this balancing act of we're really in a transition of, can we let go of where we're too much dependent or have become too dependent, on other people and institutions telling us or dictating to us what we need, to really in balance with this responsibility. Can we step up? Can we actually take responsibility now for, telling ourselves what to do? We can't, in a sense that makes sense, right? We can't kind of keep blaming other people for telling us what to do if we're not replacing that with something. I mean, hell, right? We have to tell ourselves what to do. So 3 corrections for this balance. The first one was parasitic energy. So the metaphysics of parasitic energy is really where obviously the host is has an environment that attracts the leeches, the blood suckers, that drain us and don't contribute anything back. In kinesiology, how we view parasites or how we view parasitic energy is all about shifting the vibration, similar to the work we've done with viruses. So we shift our vibration to the point that the parasites really aren't interested in feeding off us. We don't have any vibrational match with them. The thing that we ask in the parasitic is, who is the host and who is the parasite? What's the match? And then obviously, what do we need to do to change that dynamic? Interestingly, we're the parasites. So I had to test this about 5 times because, we're so used to they just suck my energy, they're draining me. And it can be quite humbling to go, you're the sucker, right? You are sucking somebody else's energy. So actually we're parasiting. And who are we parasiting off? Well, I'm pretty sure it's those institutions that tested at the start. And the emotions or the things that, how this is kind of working, the match is that we're being irresponsible and they're feeding us energy through their communication. And some of that communication might not be very truthful, because lies is what tested. So there's instructions and there's lies. And that energy is what we're feeding on, if you think about it. So if you're consuming news, you're deriving energy from that exchange. And so if that information is quite dense or draining or, heavy information, heavy energy, then that's what you're feeding on. Okay. So if we look at this parasitic, relationship in this way, it means that we're feeding off a source of energy that is maybe not ideal for us. It's not really life-giving or health promoting. So I feel like this parasitic energy correction was about really looking at, where are you deriving your energy from? What sources of energy are you tapping into? So let's compare that. You go out for a bushwalk, you go out into a beautiful place in nature, and you connect into that energy and you feel how that feels in the body. That is quite life-affirming, life-giving, enhances our energy. So that's an energy source that we might want to tap into in preference to other sources of energy that are not very healthy. So the first question you really want to ask yourself was sort of scan your life and look at where you are tapping into, sources of energy that are really not in your highest good. The other aspect of that is that we're feeling pessimistic, despondent, or despair. So if we've got a kind of what's the use attitude going on, then that really does lower our vibration, and it does mean that we'll kind of be vibing with those lower sources as well. So when we're in a, fuck it all, I can't deal, we will just munch on down on the, demon food, as I like to call it. So not ideal. So part of, we're being asked to take responsibility for tapping into really good, nourishing sources of energy. The correction then is two things. One was the knowing from the bark flower gorse, which was, I see light in darkness and embrace suffering as a positive aid to self-realization. So one of the things that you could look at is, if you're munching down on demon food, there could be a chance that there's something in that you actually finding nourishing or that is serving a purpose. So this is, when we meet our shadow people, this is kind of what we do. We mine, we kind of look through the sort of crap to find what the gift is at the bottom of that. So if you have been in a dark place or feeding on dark stuff, have a little bit of a look around what you kind of need to get out of that. Sometimes we can't actually let that attachment to that dark go until we've kind of found the gift. So that's the first thing to do. The second thing is clearing a reactivity pattern. So for those of you might have done these in sessions before, reactives are when something is bullying something else. So we're reacting with a particular strong reaction that is blocking other reactions. So the reactivity pattern was compacting, which was quite an interesting word. And compacting, really, I've taken that to mean we're compacting down. So we're making ourselves smaller, compacting in kind of a bit of a defensive stance. And so because we're reacting with, let's just make ourselves small, that is stopping us from sight. And basically sight in the ability to see something that's being presented to us in different ways. So it's almost like seeing the big picture, seeing multiple versions of the reality. So when we look at something, we have sight, we can see, well, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. Versus compacting, which is really, I've got one little worldview available to me. One, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Anyway, so we need to clear that reaction. We need to be able to see that there are other sources of sustenance. So that if we apply this to the parasite, it's like, if you've always been fed a particular food you are not familiar with, you're not comfortable with, might not even know that other sources of food exist. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. We're breaking out of seeing the world one way or getting our energy from one particular source, and we're letting go of that playing small so that we can feed into multiple and other sources of energy that are potentially a lot better for us. So we need to do our tapping here in terms of letting go of making ourselves small, and letting in an expanded view, letting go of our despair and feeding off the lies or the darkness, however you can play with those words if you want, and then taking responsibility and instructing ourselves. So that was quite good for a parasite, quite helpful for a parasite energy correction. Quite good stuff. So the second thing that we did was oracle message popped up from the Goddesses and Sirens Oracle, which I'll be honest, is not my favorite oracle, and you'll see why, because they're fucking scary. This is Athena. Oh, this is Athena. As you can see, she's not like, she doesn't look like Taylor Swift, that's for sure. So Athena is here to remind us to be strategic. She wants us to formulate a strategy and to plan ahead. So she's basically saying, get your shit together, use your brain. Let's use our wisdom and our rational intellect to negotiate outcomes, to resolve problems, and to really be proactive, I guess, but strategic about how we want to feel and be. So if we're kind of sitting around going, oh, I really don't want to, lose my ISO Zen, well, Athena's basically saying, well, fucking get onto it and make sure you don't lose it. Like, what are you going to do about it, right? And so there's a real assertiveness, there's a real strength in that. So I think what I'm reading from that is we're underestimating ourselves a little bit, and maybe we've got a little bit sloppy, and it's time to sharpen this up. And you know, like, don't underestimate ourselves. If we want to can keep our ISO Zen, if we want to commit to a disciplined yoga practice every day, then we can do it. You just have to plan it and be strategic. And so the question there is, if you're resistant to it, if you are resistant to having plans, or if you're resistant to taking a leadership role or taking the lead or being strategic, really look into that, because one of the things I've learned recently, and I've always known this, but it was like a really aha moment, blind spot, was like, if you don't want to feel anxious about doing something, the best way to deal with that is to just do it. I was thinking I could sit and journal for an hour about, why do I feel so anxious about doing this video, for example, or I could just get on and do it. Crazy stuff. So maybe that's something about it, about tapping into a little bit of Athena's warrior. We can kind of rush in to get over that anxiety. She's saying it's sort of this rush in, but be smart as you're rushing in. Have a little bit of a think about it and then get on and do it. So that's our message from Athena. Thirdly, our pain and wellness behaviors. So this is basically another form of sabotage and a way of looking at self-sabotage. The question here is, why am I not choosing wellness behaviors? So we're choosing a pain behavior over a wellness behavior. The things that tested, pain behaviors, not following through on things, not establishing the routine or habit, not doing things consistently, and the emotions that tested as a result of that, the pain emotions, were anxiety, depression, and withdrawal. The wellness behaviors are obviously the flip side of that. So wanting to follow through on things, wanting to do our healthy behaviors routinely and consistently. And the emotions that we need here are assurance, enthusiasm, and enjoyment. So tested here for why we're choosing the pain behaviors. What's in it for us to choose the pain behaviors? And what tested was not necessarily that there's a payoff. It was that we're simply emotional. So we're actually trying to choose and trying to implement behaviors and routines from an emotional point of view. So that means that we're likely to be irrational or fearful or resistant. So for example, if I get up in the morning and I'm feeling, hungover, and that can be energy hangover, because I'm not really on the terps every night, but I will often feel energetically hungover when I wake up, and then I choose, oh no, I'm not going to meditate this morning, I just don't feel like it, right? I'm choosing from that emotional state, I'm choosing from that vibration that I'm in, and it's not good, because it's never going to want to do it when you're in that state, right? So the guidance here is, thanks Athena, she's popping up again to tell us you need to be strategic, you need to take the lead, you need to not be hijacked or enslaved by your emotions. So you need to get hold of this rationality. You need to let's have a rational look at this. Yeah, you just need to meditate. That would be the logical, rational thing to do, particularly when you're feeling energetically hungover, right? Now, I can share with you some of my resistance in the past in reclaiming my rational brain, rationality, is that it can tend to feel a bit harsh, a bit too hardcore. We've all been doing this, and you know me, this is what I say, we have to be nurturing and forgiving and compassionate towards the child. This is still doing that, but it's coming into the wisdom of what I've called the rationality of the heart. So the heart knows that it's really in your highest good to meditate. And if you wake up not feeling like it, I'm sorry, but the compassionate, neutral heart is going to say, you still need to do it, right? So just wanted to let you know, bring in that the heart is actually really rational. It's not it's actually not emotional. So that is something that we struggle with. We tend to kind of think that our emotions are always, you know, kind of good for us, and I'm not saying they're bad for us, but we can't really be making decisions all the time from the thick of our programming, essentially. So the correction to help us with this is a Cook's hookup, which I've left the instructions there for you. I'm sure you can follow them. And we're combining that with an affirmation that tested, which is I let go of the pain of the past and freely move forward with my life. So I understand letting go of the pain of the past. That's really where the emotion's coming from. So if we're really in an emotional reaction, we're in a memory, and that's not a good place to be making our, you know, rational or particularly new behavior choices from. So we need to let go of whatever the past baggage was, and, you know, step into making choices from that 0 point, from that free point. And that's where we can move forward freely. So I hope all that makes sense. Let me know, actually, if anybody has questions, feedback, whatever. I'm happy to answer them again, or, you know, address them and send it out to the group. Our support for this balance was yellow calcite, crystal show and tell time. So I have a palm stone of yellow calcite and a little tumbled stone, which is really lovely. And you can see here, yellow calcite is really an intellect stone. It's the insight and action, confidence, persistence, gives us mental clarity and focus. So good to meditate with that, or use that in your strategic planning. And if you don't have one or can't get one, use that picture, that's fine. Then we have rhythmic movement. So rhythmic movements are basically the movements that babies make that are really critical for wiring up our brain, essentially, for our processing, sensory processing, for our posture, for our balance, neurodevelopment, emotions, everything. These exercises, they're not just for kids, rhythmic movement. They're really great for helping us to change patterns of behavior, to break through where we're stuck in a loop. This particular one's really simple. It's just rotating the head. Don't be fooled by the simplicity of these, though. They're really powerful, and you need to do them really mindfully. And the thing that you're aiming to do is to be as rhythmical and symmetrical as possible. So really bring a mindfulness to this movement. If you do that, you will feel quite a shift, I would imagine. So yeah, so follow those instructions, do those head rolls every day for a couple of weeks, or even when you're feeling uptight or feeling stuck. So that they're a great one. And then the last bit of homework or support, we had a healthy life strategy, wanting to get started in your strategy building. So the first part of your strategy might be setting your criteria for a healthy life. So this isn't setting rules, it isn't setting conditions like you must do this and you must do that, but it's like, just have a think about, what does a healthy life look like for you? And they're your guidelines to build this strategy then of how you're going to do it. So you can go ahead and build the strategy if you like, but for those of you that this might feel a bit overwhelming, just start with the criteria. Okay, so that is it. You can follow the journaling prompts. There's again a lot there to reflect on and work through. You can read the takeaways yourself. I hope you found this useful. Oh yeah, just in the thing I wanted to say, the nutshell kind of thing, having gone through this whole balance now, when we said I tell myself, what was it? I tell myself to do what is right for me. I think a great way to sum that up is, when you are telling yourself what to do is right for you, it's your heart that's telling you what to do. So it's not the kind of you know, policeman in your in your mind that's, you know, based on these rules and you know, what your you know, kind of parroting what you learned from your parents. This is about your self-authority and your heart guiding you and telling you what to do. So we're really stepping into this Thank you, authorities. Thank you, media. Thank you, family. Whoever you've got in your life that kind of tells you what to do. We're letting go of feeding off of those sources of energy, and we're stepping into my heart is going to tell me what to do, and I'm going to be strategic and I'm going to follow it. Okay? Good to see you. Hope you're all well, stay well, and I'll see you soon.